Hi everyone, we're live. I'm Elizabeth Matherne with Kuck, Baxter Immigration in the South Georgia office. I am here to update you today. I'm a minute early, give some people a chance to join. There's quite a few things going on in immigration today that we can cover. I'm going to update you on all things immigration. I won't have any litigation updates other than what you may have already seen online. I'd really like to update you on immigration legislation, what's happening. Apparently there's a Plan C the Democrats are proposing. USCIS has offered DED, Deferred Enforced Departure, for Hong Kong residents. I'll explain a little bit about that. A new T visa manual came out. I'll talk to you about T visas. I would like to update you on the retrogression. Let's see, what else? Land borders, port of entries, ferry crossings for fully vaccinated individuals. We can talk about that. And of course, also immigration court case processing guidelines have been rolled back. I can talk a little bit about that. If you have any questions about your immigration case in general, please feel free to post those questions. I'm happy to answer them live. Also, feel free to get those likes and hearts and smiley faces going, because that helps alert people that we're online. So we get more questions. The more questions that people ask, the more we all learn. So thank you so much for everyone who's joining us. Also, feel free to post and say hello. Thank you. Hello. If you're just joining us, I am Elizabeth Matherne. I am the attorney in our South Georgia office. We are in Adel, Georgia, which is halfway between Tifton and Valdosta, right down I-75 near North Florida, only like 37 miles from the Florida border. So hello from Kenya. Hi, Alex. Maricela, updates on Daca. Daca is still frozen. As I mentioned last week, the new rule was proposed by the Biden administration that's now in the notice and comment period that's supposed to shore up Daca as a replacement for what's going on in the courts. So we'll see how all that shakes out. But right now, no new news on that. The 60 days notice and comment period is still running. We're looking at that going through, I believe, the end of November. I think it was November 29th. So yeah, that's it. That's the only news we have there. All right. Let's jump in. Feel free to post questions. One of the CAM, Central American Minors Program, it's active. Jasmine, thank you for asking. That is something that Biden, I don't know why, that Obama/Biden, the Obama administration started, and it turned out that it wasn't really used very much. It is back rolling, and I've been hearing that some of those applications are actually working. So it's something worth trying if your situation connects with that. Let me pull that up real quick and go down the qualifications. I know them, but I don't want to say anything wrong. I want you guys to have good information. So it's open, it's accepting applications, and this is generally for children who are nationals of El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, as well as certain family members of those children who are applying for refugee status and possible resettlement. So they need to be unmarried, under 21, and They also need to have a parent or legal guardian lawfully present in the U.S. So that might be like on TPS, residency citizenship, where they can basically get paroled into the United States. It seems like a really excellent program on paper. I think part of the problem a lot of people are running into is it maybe is a little narrow for a lot of people to qualify for. But if you are interested in seeing if that applies to you at all, feel free to call and make a consultation with us. If you're interested in petitioning for a child in El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, I know the situation in those countries is really, really bad right now. So we'd love to help with children be in a safer place. Okay, so that program is a good segue into the Democrats' Plan C, what they're proposing, because it's in a way kind of a similar thing because it's utilizing the parole mechanism. So what they're proposing is like a 5-year parole grant for people that qualify, which presumably would be people who have no other status, who have no disqualifying criminal convictions, things like that. And that would enable them to, in theory, have like a permission to be in the United States on a temporary basis, provides no path to residency, no path to citizenship, allegedly, potentially a path to travel on presumably like an advanced parole document, which would be applied for ahead of time with a certain travel window. You would go out and come back in. Advocates who have been fighting for a path to citizenship for many, many, many years, all the way back to the Obama administration, allegedly walked out on the call where Democratic staffers were like presenting this plan. Allegedly, they, I think it was a call, so they like, signed off to walk out and protest that it was another half measure. And advocates really, really, really think that the time has come for a path to citizenship for many undocumented people that have no other way to adjust their status, are contributing to society, and have no disqualifying criminal convictions or other issues. They're not a threat to national security or public harm in any way. So especially in a time where our economy is kind of in limbo, something like that would potentially provide a real shot in the arm to our economy, and that's all well documented and lots of studies supporting that. But right now we're just in a really hyper partisan, divided time. So that's where we are. Do I think, hi everybody, thanks for joining. Jaime, nice to meet you. So glad you're watching for the first time. Please feel free to post any questions. Let's see, for, what was I gonna say? Oh, do I think that it's going to pass? I don't know. I mean, it seems like the Democrats are just really fumbling the ball here. So I'm sort of running, I'm totally an optimist. I usually find a silver lining and a bright side in almost everything and anything, and I'm really losing my optimism for this situation. So there's always hope. Things happen. We can be surprised, but I'm really thinking that the Democrats might not be able to get anything done. And especially not what we were hoping for, that would be kind of a big opportunity to address some really, really bad things in our immigration system, which make them extremely inefficient, extremely punitive to segments of society that it's completely unnecessary. So, all right, moving on. Let's see if there is a question. All right, what about Diversity 2022? Is KCC really working on DV22? Allegedly they are. I don't know that, I mean, part of the cynicism that starts to set in when you deal with immigration for any extended period of time is the realization that we're in a snowball effect at this point. The government's saying that they're trying to prioritize, and so presumably DV 2022 is going to be their priority right now, and they're going to try to process those. Hello, thank you so much for posting. So I think that DV 2022, you've got a good shot. Remember, folks, DV 2023 is open. If you are a country, if you're a national of a country that qualifies for DV 2023, you have the education. Excellent program, great thing to look into. Most people can handle that on their own, but if you have any questions, you want to go over your eligibility for that, feel free to give us a call. All right. I am going to move on to another update. Let's see. Let's talk about deferred enforced departure for Hong Kong residents. Okay, that's new. That didn't get a ton of press. I mean, maybe it did in certain segments, but it has not been on national news, that's for sure. As many people know, the situation in Hong Kong is deteriorating. There are people that are fleeing for, especially like, young journalists and things like that, that are fleeing, seeking asylum. And the Deferred Enforced Departure Program is, like we were talking about parole, it is not a path to citizenship. It's not a path to residency. It's like a temporary permission to be here. So with deferred enforced departure comes a work permit, a work authorization. You'll also see that called employment authorization document, EAD, and you would have to apply for that, show certain documentation that you are or were a resident of Hong Kong. They talk about some of those things being a Hong Kong Special Administrative Region passport, a British National Overseas passport, an identity card, Hong Kong Permanent Identity Card, things like that. So also with DED comes certain bars. If you have certain criminal history, you can't necessarily utilize that. But remember, with any of these programs, there is a closing date. With TPS and DED, there's usually a filing window. And then once that window closes, it's really, really difficult. You have to have an excuse for late filing. And if you registered within that period of time, a lot of times there are renewal opportunities. So you want to get in on that if at all possible. And you can apply for something like DED while you have another application pending. So you might consider that. You just always, if you do have a certain strategy in place and you want to file an additional application, you want to make sure that you're not doing like conflicting intents. So you would want to talk with an immigration attorney before maybe filing that application. All right, let's see. All right, we've got a few questions. Let's see. What could be done if you're found inadmissible for adjustment of status, being a Daca recipient? Okay, so there is a statute that outlines inadmissibility. Inadmissibility can be found for several different reasons. One, for example, could be entered without authorization. Like you entered through the border without what we call inspection and admission. That can create a ground of inadmissibility. For most grounds of inadmissibility, there are waivers. So if, for example, you have a finding of inadmissibility, you potentially could be eligible for a waiver. Waivers are not just available for everyone. Many have certain qualifying relatives that you have to have. If, for example, you maybe have been a victim of domestic violence, maybe you qualify for what's called VAWA, Violence Against Women Act. You might be able to be the qualifying person. So like the hardship to you as the applicant may be enough. In other circumstances, you may need a lawful permanent resident or U.S. citizen spouse or parent. In other situations, sometimes a U.S. citizen or lawful permanent resident child can be a qualifying relative. But that's all very technical. And if you have been found to have a ground of inadmissibility, I really do recommend that you meet with a qualified immigration lawyer, because once you get into inadmissibility, deportability, all of those statutory grounds, the interplay between the statutes is really complicated. So sometimes there's a waiver, sometimes there's not. Sometimes you're able to utilize a waiver in a certain way. It can't be used in another way. So, all right. So Jaime's saying, just out of curiosity. Yeah, it's a great question. Waivers can be done. Jaime's asking, can waivers be done inside the US or outside? Both. Very fact sensitive sort of determination there, depending on where the person is, what ground of inadmissibility was determined, etc. So yes, they can be done either way, depending on what's going on, where the person is and what part of a potential process they're in. For Daca recipients, however, the best thing for Daca recipients to do is to have their case evaluated by an immigration attorney to see if there's a path towards residency or citizenship. There can be options, even if you entered without inspection. For example, one of those options is, you're very welcome. One of those options is if someone is married to a U.S. citizen, they would be an immediate relative. Immediate relatives are able to adjust in the United States to permanent residency on a marriage-based petition if they have an entry with inspection. Daca recipients are able to get advanced parole, which allows them to travel out and come back in with permission. They then get put in that category of entering with inspection and admission, and they're eligible to adjust here in the U.S. based on marriage to their U.S. citizen spouse. So I think a lot of people know about that at this point, but there's still people that don't quite understand that. So if you are a Daca recipient, you're wondering about like that ground of inadmissibility of your original entry to the U.S. as probably a minor child or a baby, talk to somebody about how to break that down and what your options may be. All right, let's see. Gerald, this is not the land of the free when U.S. citizen can't live with their undocumented spouse because of the permanent bar. That's right, bar 9C. The permanent bar is one of the, I think, like people who know about it and are experiencing the hardship of the permanent bar understand that it is just horrific, right? Like, why? The only thing that does is make people stuck, and it doesn't help. It doesn't help anybody. It's not a deterrence, and it's ridiculous. So I agree with you. I think 9C should be thrown in the trash can. It should be put back where it came from, and we should move forward with, you know, a registry. I think something like we had in the 70s, a registry, even 245I that we had in the 80s. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry. 245I is from Clinton, with Sunset Clinton. So I'm getting all my reforms mixed up. So anyway, yeah, something like that is gotta go. It's gotta go. It's like, and here the Democrats are just talking about parole. They're not even as a solution. It's not a solution. Of course, something is maybe better than nothing. I don't know. It's such a hard issue. And I think anybody that is living and breathing and dealing with immigration understands that what we're really dealing with is families. Families, loved ones, human beings. And what happens on the national stage is politics. So it's really, really sad. Okay, so Carolina, hola, thank you for watching. All right, I'm going to jump into a different topic, which is T visas. The USCIS updated guidance on T visas and created a new policy manual. So if you are not aware, the T visa is for human trafficking. Human trafficking can come in many different forms. It can be through work. It can be through something like, which is forced labor. It can be through sex trafficking, which is also a forced labor. It can, a T visa is similar in some ways to a U visa. It can come with really far-reaching waivers, but it's different from the U visa in that you have to be in the United States on account of the trafficking. A U visa can be applied for anywhere in the country. The requirement is that the harm must have occurred in the U.S. But if you are out of the U.S., you can still get the U visa and process back into the U.S. T visa, not so much. So T visas are something that not a lot of people think about and don't necessarily think to ask an attorney about whether this situation that's happened to them could be trafficking. And I think that is because it's not really talked about very much. And also because a lot of the trafficking in people creates extensive trauma. And with trauma comes definitely certain challenges, right? So talking about something that was painful and was presented to a person as trying to help them, but was basically using them as forced in servitude, is something that people aren't, I guess, as likely to disclose, is what I'm trying to say. So I wanted to be on your radar just in case you think that anything that you have been through could potentially be worthy of a T visa. It's good to ask an immigration lawyer about. It's good to tell your story in a confidential, safe setting and have that evaluated. Another thing that is different about the T visa from the U visa, you do not have to have a certification signed by law enforcement for a T visa. So you can, there is a way to have that. I think that with the U visa, what we're seeing is some law enforcement offices are developing restrictive policies. Some will sign U visa certifications, some will not. Some will sign them under certain circumstances. For example, if an arrest has been made, some police departments refuse to sign, and they say you have to get it from the prosecutor's office. Doesn't make a lot of sense because it seems like the police department was able to arrest the person because of the assistance provided by the person seeking the U visa. I don't understand why they wouldn't sign it, but that's the policy that we're seeing. So it is interesting. That can be restrictive for a lot of people. Maybe you can't get a U visa because you can't get any law enforcement official to sign off on it. T visas, that's not required. So if you can present your own case to USCIS, they may investigate themselves through another wing of the government. So it's another difference, and a lot of people don't know about it. So there's a new policy alert and a new policy memorandum. Handbook out there by USCIS. It allegedly describes in detail guidance, eligibility, evidentiary standard, burdens of proof, confidentiality protections. It clarifies the age-based exemption, which I didn't mention, but if someone is under 18 when the alleged trafficking incidents occurred, then things like force are presumed. So there are certain presumptions that make it a little bit easier to meet the burden for a T visa. And so it's, I guess they're explaining that in this new policy memorandum. All right, let's see, Gerald. A lot of undocumented, I know, don't want to become U.S. citizens. All they want is a visa. That's a great point, Gerald. I think there was a study done on IRA. IRA was a legislation passed in 1997, and what they found after, which included the permanent bar legislation, what they found is it does not deter migration to the U.S., but it leaves more people stuck in the U.S. and in limbo. So, you know, these bars, for people who don't know about the bars, that a lot of them are triggered once you leave the U.S., so people stay stuck, not wanting to trigger the bar. And so, you know, back when there was a temporary worker program, guest worker, and people could get border crossing cards or seasonal worker visas to just come across the border, find work, and go back home. You know, something like that provides the freedom of movement. I don't think we should be so afraid of freedom of movement. Especially if, you know, we can require things like people pay taxes for the income that's earned on U.S. soil. That's not a difficult thing to do. So anyway, I agree with you, Gerald. A lot of harm is done by our current system. I would love to see some changes made. And so that brings us to a good segue into the immigration judges now have the freedom to make case decisions without having to worry about case quotas. The Biden administration rolled back or eliminated a Trump era case quotas for immigration judges. We saw that in action, and it did, you know, make things more difficult working in immigration court. Things like closure for administrative processing, like if you have a pending case with USCIS and you want to get your case closed so you can go over to USCIS and let them deal with your application, or if you need more time for that to advance, which all of those things are like reasonable requests, right? It's just very just asking for the chance to like let the process work for you. But all of that became really, really challenging and really difficult because immigration judges, I mean, are human beings who were trying to keep their jobs, I guess. Some just quit and said, I'm not doing this. That's too much constraint on my ability to manage my own docket. Others maybe tried to be smart and find ways around it, while others really utilize that as a way to just push cases through, you know, to examine cases in detail at the very, very beginning when maybe an attorney or a person hadn't even had an opportunity to get an attorney, but the judges just pushed. Then we had COVID hit, and so it's just been quite a roller coaster. That elimination, some advocates are I don't want to say taking credit, but some advocates are saying that that's a good sign because it may be the result of the administration acknowledging or listening to some of the lawsuits that were filed under the Trump administration, stating that immigration court is devoid of due process and fairness and all that, which we all know. I mean, we all know. I'm pointing to myself, like those of us who have been in immigration court, if you just spend a day watching cases in immigration court, you will see that there's a fundamental lack of fairness. or a lack of fundamental fairness. And so these lawsuits that were filed in the last few years tried to bring that to both the public view and to push in front of the federal courts. So maybe it seems like litigation is the way of the future at this point in immigration law, because it doesn't seem like the legislative branch is going to be able to address. I mean, we really need all three branches of government working in order to maintain proper checks and balances. But anyway, at least we've got litigation. So mentioning litigation, and I'm going to be wrapping up soon because I'm over time, but another piece of information that came out regarding immigration courts was the Fry Hat injunction was rolled back. So there was an injunction that said that people who were COVID, high risk for COVID, like had certain medical conditions, etc., should be released, and that the detention centers had to take certain steps to implement protocols and safety measures to protect detainees in immigration detention facilities. That injunction that gave those instructions has been lifted, meaning that it's no longer in action. So that means that potentially we may see more people getting sick again because they're not going to take the safety protocols. COVID is still here. The Delta variant is still here. And, what's interesting is it seemed like sometimes the deportation officers were actually bringing the virus into the facility. So I don't know that there's any sort of requirement that the people working at the deportation facilities, that detention centers, be vaccinated. So I think that is a really sad update. And the Biden administration continued to fight that case where they could have issued like a consent order, like they could have come to an agreement to resolve that case. So for anybody who thinks that the Biden administration is just doing great on immigration, I think any immigration advocate can give you a rundown of why that may not necessarily be the case. So lots going on in immigration. A few things I did not get to were the retrogression with India and China. Lots online about that if you want to read more about it. I'm pretty sure that we tweeted about it. It's in our newsletter. If you don't get our newsletter and you would like to, please go to our website and click the newsletter button. You can also comment here, send us a direct message if you want to be added to our newsletter. Send that out about every week, and it has the latest immigration news sort of from every aspect of immigration. Also, next month, fully vaccinated individuals would be able to cross land borders and ferry ports without issue. So obviously they have to have permission to enter with some sort of a visa. But that is a new development. All right, well, I think I could go on, but I think I'm going to wrap up. Thank you so much for everybody who joined. My name is Elizabeth Matherne. I am the attorney down in the South Georgia office, which is in Adel, Georgia. That is halfway between Tifton and Valdosta, almost to Florida on I-75. If you'd like to make a consultation appointment with me, please feel free to give me a call. My phone number is here, 229-472-5775. I'd be happy to talk with you about your immigration case. I also am here almost every Thursday. I most likely won't be with you next Thursday because I'll be in Jacksonville for some immigration office appointments. So if I get out and I can do it from sunny Jacksonville, Florida, hopefully it'll be sunny. I like going there because the weather's usually beautiful. then I will. Otherwise, we'll see if someone else from the firm can join you and give you the updates that I might have given you. All right. Well, I hope you have a great week. Thanks so much. Take care. Bye.